Hey everyone, welcome to another typology interview. We have Nathaniel. Finally, we get you on the channel. How's it going, man?
It's going really good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Seeing you around in the comment section and on the Facebook, and yeah, you've been a member for a little bit. So, do you want to tell us how
Yeah.
you got here? What you're doing in typology?
Yeah. Typology's actually been kind of a long story for me. It started, I think, when I was very young. I don't know a precise time. I'm guessing somewhere, give or take, around when I was 10 or 11. My parents were heavily involved in a church community, and they did a lot of like spiritual gift tests and just personality stuff to help build relationships within the family and within the church. So they would watch videos, like VHS tapes, and discuss personality stuff quite a bit. And my dad was really into it, and my mom was less so. She wasn't as much of a fan of it. But I would overhear it and I would listen to it, and I was just instantly engaged. I believe the first personality system that I heard was the four temperaments, and I think they used animals to describe these temperaments. The only two
Mm-hmm.
I can remember are the otter and the golden retriever. I think the otter was the sanguine type,
Right.
and I heard that, and as a kid, I was like, "Oh, that's me. I'm like, the party guy. Want to have fun." And that's what I really heavily related to at that age. At some point, I believe my mom was looking through the MBTI test. It would have been like a paper one. We didn't really have a lot of internet access when I was a kid. Um, so it would probably have been a book she checked out from the library. And she was listing off the different types, and I had a lot of interest in it. And then she wasn't super eager to hand out that information and get me into that because as a kid, I tended to latch onto things and just kind of go with them. And it wasn't
Yeah.
something a huge fan of. So she wanted to kind of repress that quite a bit, which is very much a marker of our, mother son relationship, sort of that back and forth,
She saw your consumer in some way, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, just for your audience sake, I'm typed a lead consume, and I've always typed
Yeah.
myself a lead consume. So um, yeah, so there's very much that back and forth. We had a very healthy relationship, but the stressor point was the control versus the, like, she would hide books in the library from me or kind of like call me out for, what I was reading or what I was consuming, if she
Wow.
felt that
Yeah.
information was harmful. And it
That
was
sounds
very
demon consume a
sincere.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possibly. I think she did a lot of consuming herself, but she was very policing about good information versus bad information. Um, and that stress point was actually, I think, a very healthy thing for the both of us. Um, just probably why our relationship was so strong and
Right.
occasionally contentious was there was a lot of balance there where I'm always, very heavy on the speculation, and she'd very much be worried about, well, both my parents really worried about the reckless speculation that I would engage
Right.
in. Like,
Yeah.
my mom would be the one bringing tons of books into the house, and she would kind of like go through these stacks of books and listen to a lot of like homeschooling cassettes. I was homeschooled, so we were in the same environment, learning environment quite a lot. So I would be like
Wow.
listening to the tapes that she would be playing, and she listened to a lot of these tapes, a lot of them over and over again. Um, and I would listen to it and sort of be kind of learning along with her and forming my own opinion. And she'd have like a lot of accompanying material that she'd have, and I would just be kind of like grabbing these off the shelf and just pouring through them. And if I really liked it, I would just kind of get a little obsessive and kind of take it to the extreme. Like one example, we're from a very religious background. Some would describe as fundamentalist. So a lot of very fundamentalist, very maybe out there material would be included in these stacks of books that my mom would be getting and then going through. to see if she agreed with it or not. I'd
Wow.
find some of them, and not all these books. My mom was not on board with all these books that she was kind of bringing in and then going through. She'd sort it into piles of this is good, this is bad.
There's so much to unpack there. Yeah. First of all, I really like how you describe Annie as reckless. What do you say? Reckless guessing, reckless speculation.
Speculation. The word speculation, like Nathan, you over speculate, and you don't have a lot of grounds to believe that. That would be something that would be repeated a lot, in my childhood.
That must have been rough because like that's your savior, and they're just kicking you and your savior right there over and over. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't appreciate it. But I do believe there was an element to that was very healthy. I'm not resentful looking back at that at all. Actually, I'm very appreciative. I'm very thankful that my parents probably didn't have exactly the same build as me, and that back and forth is very intellectually rigorous and forces me to challenge certain ideas that I have. If I did just go with it, Dave Powers uses the term "go off a cliff." I'd probably just, go off a cliff.
Yeah,
and that'd be the last you'd ever see of me.
And like, are you still policing yourself now on the books you read or the stuff you consume, or now you're just more loose about it?
I'm probably more reckless, but I'm always taking my little, what I've learned, in the last week, and if people ask me what I'm doing like today or this week, they usually want like a list of like, oh, I worked on this, I saw this person, and then I did this, and then I mowed the lawn, and then I watched this movie. And then what they get is usually like, what I'm thinking about or what I'm like reading. So it'll be like, oh, I've been into the philosopher Kierkegaard today. Like I've only started reading one of his books. I don't really get it, but here's some of these ideas that I thought were kind of cool that kind of popped out to me. It kind of reminds me of what I saw in this one movie this one time. And it seems to be arguing with this other philosopher, and he didn't like this philosopher. And then Kierkegaard, well, he had this horrible like mishap with one of his relationships, and that reminds me of a relationship that I had. That's usually what they get. So there can be like a communication breakdown, and they're asking for one thing. Going back to my mom, like after I would play like a game of soccer, she would greet me when I came home, and I'd be like thinking about various moments of the game that made me feel a specific way, and she'd ask me like, oh, who was there, she was very interested in who was there, was the turnout good, that kind of thing. And like she'd ask me who was there, and I'd just going into remembering who was there, like I'd actually have a struggle. Like I'd start listing names off, and then I would just get mad, like, hey, you know what, the people who were there, like I don't care.
Right.
Like I do care. I care very much about all the people that showed up to soccer. But I didn't care in the same way that she did. So a lot of times there will be these communication breakdowns that I find to be frustrating. But they do challenge me. Like ops is one thing that I'll bring up a lot. And like, if people are asking me what I'm doing, it's like, well, I'm into this personality thing that I don't think a lot of you guys all would really jive with, and then I start talking about it, and they'll be like, yo, like you can't have this system that organizes everybody, it's going to break down eventually. And like they'll start challenging me usually, and then other members of my family who are maybe a little bit more interested in that kind of thing, they'll like just want to hear what I have to say about it, and what type do you think I am, and like we'll have more interesting.
Well, I mean, I see the channel changiness too. Is like we're all over the place here. But yeah, let's get back on track and just get. How did you get to OP? Because I really want to unpack a bunch of those things that you were saying there too.
Yeah, sure. So I was going through a dark time 4 years ago, and I had sworn off personality theory for years, but somebody got me to take a 16 personalities test. I came back as an INTP, which I also had been MBTI tested in college. I came back as an INTP or an INFP. And I looked at INTP and it's like, yeah, you're the most logical one, the smart one. You don't care about people. I was feeling super salty at the time, so I was like, yeah, I don't care about people at all. I'm just like, I'm the smart one. Like everyone's saying I'm illogical, but I know I'm the smart one. So yeah, that's my type. We were at this, yeah, I was at a bonfire and everything. So I get into that for a little bit more, and then I start realizing that I have friends who are going through difficult times who are also taking this test. So I start looking up their types to see what they're dealing with. So if let's say you're an ISFP and they say, "Oh, I'm an ISFP," and they're going through a hard time, I start looking up ISFP problems, like what's the ISFP dealing with, how do they think, and I'm looking through a lot of really cheap, silly articles to kind of like get down to the root of what they're feeling, what their experience is. And that eventually takes me to a YouTube channel that plugs Dave Superpowers as being like the final authority on all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, is he?
Can you
Okay.
share with us the sensory about this? What is this?
I think it was Casual Cognition channel.
Okay.
I think her channel plugged Dave Superpowers just before Dave Superpowers started coming back.
Wow, nice. Okay, cool.
So I got into his videos, and it was back when it was just his graphic. Back when he just showed the graphic of like the 4 little bubbles. And I watched a lot of his old videos on cognitive functions, and I got really into it. And just around that time, he introduces Shannon as his co-operator, and it sort of launches what we now know as ops. And I was not enjoying their early content, so I did not sign up for the class.
Nice. Okay.
It was too. It would boil down the cognitive functions in a way that I didn't enjoy, and I preferred other YouTube channels. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name. He self-types as an INFJ, and he had the archetypes of every single personality type, and he would just kind of go on almost poetically about what the archetypes of each type is, and then he had these updated videos that sort of updated his opinions on the INFP, the INFJ, and I loved those. And
it's really interesting that I've seen people with any like archetypes better for some reason.
Yeah, I really enjoy a lot of archetype things, which seems like an NI thing, but like I love Star Wars. I love Lord of the Rings. I love the archetypes of those characters. I think what I would prefer, though, is seeing those archetypes in lots of different scenarios, so lots of different genres, and I would really like to see how those personality archetypes break down or act differently than what would be expected. So, like, I really enjoy like the interchange between Luke Skywalker and like Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, where instead of killing the Dark Lord in his tower, Luke throws his lightsaber away and says, "I'm not even playing your game anymore." Like that, like what? Like that shock, that shocking feeling of letting go and no longer playing the preordained game. Like I'm breaking free will, or I'm breaking fate. I'm choosing free will. I'd rather die than do what you want me to do. When it breaks the pattern like that, that really just gives me like a huge rush. And especially if I identify with that character's like emotions, it's going to be very like deeply moving to me. So I really, love that character. I love scenarios like that or books like that.
A little bit of consume there too. Like you like the disrupting of the pattern, disrupting the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, with a very heavy emphasis on disrupting the emotional expectations. I don't actually like really arguing with people on logical points. It really actually is very upsetting. What ops will call like a demon state, that's going to draw out a demon state in me, is having to argue out the points and disagreeing a lot. It's going to be like on logical points. Like everyone can have their own emotions, their own feelings, their own values. Everyone has their own inner world. But as soon as we start like arguing politics or arguing like, masks or vaccines, even if I have a very solid belief of my own that's based in logic, I'm not really going to want to like fight back and forth about it. I used to quite a lot. It was a very dark time in my life, like 12 years ago. I used to argue politics all the time on forums and everything. And cutting that out of my life has been super valuable for me.
So I'm just wondering how we got to arguing from Star Wars from OPS. Like I'm wondering what the connections were, how we got here. Do you remember
Yeah.
them?
No.
Okay. All right. But the archetypes sort of kicked that off. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. All right, I don't know where I'm at, so go.
Yeah, no. So I'm digging the SI because like you're really taking us on like, okay, don't forget any details, and then let's go on the tangents, and then like let's continue with the details. Like the SI is there. Yeah. Yeah. So you didn't do the Dave class, you got into archetypes and other YouTube channels. So then when did you come to OPS?
About last fall. We were at the height of
Right.
COVID. I was super isolated. I was getting very lonely, and the content from David and Shannon I thought was really picking up, and I was really liking the discussions in the unofficial Facebook group. So I was like, you know what? I've kind of been holding off on this for a while, and there's a lot of content probably on their private class, and maybe I actually want to look into that and not blow it off anymore. So I signed up, and a lot of the classes were really good. So I stay subscribed, and I didn't want to get typed for a really long time. I wanted to work out my own type. So it wasn't until the spring that I started trying to submit for a typing. And the only reason I broke down on that instead of just having my own type was that every single day I'd be thinking I was a different type. It was like a color wheel. Like, you spin like a color wheel and you see all the colors and the pictures kind of at once. And some of those images were sticking out to me a little bit more than others. So those images that stuck out to me more than others, they were what I considered to be my type. But I was like, one day I'd think I was an ESFJ. The next day I'd think I was an ESTP, then an INFP. And it just like, it was getting a little bit exhausting, and I was tired of going in circles.
Right.
So I was like, okay,
hard to narrow down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted them to pin it down for me and see if I agreed, and just kind of put it to rest and move on. So I submitted my type. I submitted myself to be an INFP.
Really close.
Consume,
really good.
sleep, last play. And I thought my modalities were masculine, feminine. So yeah, it was a good experience. And then I believe, I can't remember if it's the group you work with or a different group. There's a group on the Facebook channel that wanted to give a shot at typing me. I think it was Adam and Karen's group. And they did a couple interviews with me, and they went over it, and their members came up with different types. And there was sort of a spectrum of responses, but there were some common threads that were kind of like sticking out to me as being strong potentials. And so when I did receive my type back, it was not a huge shock. It came back, and it did sort of, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, but also I was like,
how so?
You know what?
Why?
Because my type, when I was seeing them like in the celebrity docs, most of the people that were in the celebrity docs would be people that I was familiar with for quite some time. And I had pretty strong ideas on them, and a lot of them kind of annoyed me. Certain things about their life struck me as really almost like just even traumatic to think about.
Right. I mean, that should be the sign that that's your type, right?
Yeah, and so when I got it back and I got my animal order back, like I was like, oh great, yeah, this is exactly what I wasn't wanting, and there was probably a reason for that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so it was unpleasant, but it felt true.
Yeah. So we were talking about this a little bit. I was saying you might be more energy dom than info dom because you don't like to argue. But is that what you got back? Like blast last?
No.
Yeah.
You want me to give you your type, or do you kind of want to work?
We can work through it. It's just interesting because like I see a lot of people, and your blast isn't that bad. Like your blast is really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that had to do with like your homeschooling and like your parents pushing on you. But I guess
it might have.
Right.
I've been told by friends that even in the last 10 years, a lot of my entire way of presenting myself to people has changed pretty dramatically. And I think that has been me trying to get a lot better at slowly breaking down the logical points and then presenting them point by point and trying to have the logic lead one point to the next. Um, Whereas when I was younger,
Yeah.
it was more just like very all over the place and never really organized or drawn in. So I do actually think that I'm 35, so you know,
Okay.
I'm at the point in my life where I probably should be getting better at my animals. And so I think it's maybe more that progression. When I was younger, I think the really abrasive, chaotic, overly jokestery, spastic ENFP would have like you'd see me as like a 12-year-old kid talking and you'd instantly know which group I fell into. Like it's like, oh, okay, one of those people. Like I'd watch old home videos of me as a kid. And I'm like, am I even like real? Like it's like a character in a movie where they're like so exaggerated that you can't believe that a writer would feel dignified even creating a fake character like this. Then you look at home videos of me, and I'm like that person, like just ridiculous, like overly insulting, just constantly teasing the wrong people, poking the wrong bears, and just being really kind of obnoxious about it too. So it's actually been a lesson to try to slow down how fast I speak and try to break things down for people and see things from their perspective and try to have a good understanding of how various words are going to impact their emotional state and their willingness to open their mind and agree with various points, or at least juggle the ideas for themselves. So, this sort of growing awareness as I've grown has helped kind of bring that extreme, obnoxious, sort of like in your face chaos down. It's helped water it down a little bit to the point where I think people can tolerate me a little bit more easily than if I were like, a kid. And I think that's a growing process that a lot of people have to go through.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, tell me about that process a little bit. Okay. So because this is interesting because of some new insights I've been seeing. So like
mhm.
you're changing the way you're coming off to people so that you're more tolerable, right?
Sure.
Basically, is what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been part of my growth. Absolutely.
Right. But it's not something that touches onto your identity, right? It's just a way to interact. It's like your interface.
Yeah, it's trying to interact better. Like when I was younger, I'd just be very belligerent. Like, I believe what I believe. And, if people disagreed with me, I don't really need to bring them along for the ride. Now I've come to much more of a trying not to be belligerent like that. Like if someone disagreed with me politically, I would just be very almost deciderish and like, I need to cut them down. Like, I need to
Oh wow.
just be aggressive. And and it's like an emotionally heightened state, like a lot of rage and anger internally. Um it's not that they're just wrong, it's that they're like I have this reflexive feeling that they're evil, and I actually have like a lot of like imagery in my head that is very extreme. And I identify it now as being like when I feel that just rage. Like let's say I'm on Facebook, I block most political stuff so I don't see it in my feed. But
Right.
if something slips through and they're talking about vaccines or masks or some hot topic issue of the day and it hits me wrong or triggers me emotionally and I just feel that intense rage and emotion just boiling up and I just feel like I need to, I don't know, humiliate them or destroy them or really negative behaviors.
Yeah.
Um, that I usually try to remember, bring it back to me. I'm like, no, this is a me problem. This reaction is a flag telling me I need to take care of myself and bring myself into a state of more inner calm.
Yeah, that's good responsibility there on the FI. Yeah.
That's more of a recent discovery. I would say maybe within the last 10 years. Because I was destroying my life, where I was like it was physically tearing me apart from the inside. And it's just been just learning to accept that other people are intelligent, have reasons that they believe what they believe, deserve respect and dignity, and that, it's going to be all right. I'll wake up tomorrow if I don't. I'll sometimes allow myself to write long, like, diatribes on Facebook, but then I have to delete the comment. Like, I allow myself to write it out, but I have to delete it. And there's been a few times where I accidentally post send, so I've
Right.
like deleted it after that. And then I'll reread it and go through the emotions of the thing that I was sharing, and I'm like, after the emotion dies down, the comment that I had to leave them wasn't really even something worth sharing. So
Yeah.
it's a coping mechanism that I think I've tried to build over time. But
Yeah. So let's talk about your FI a little bit. How someone asked here, how does FI define wrong?
very
Or
in
is
the
it your
moment.
FI? Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's just assume that, I type myself as masculine FI, and let's just assume that that's how I identify myself as.
Right. But is
Going
that
from
what's
that,
defining it as wrong? Right. That's the question. Like what inside yourself is pointing out that something's wrong?
it'll be an intense emotional reaction, kind of what I was just
Okay.
describing, that rage, that anger.
Right.
The I feel
D-
responsible for managing it. So
Does
I do
something
believe.
precede that emotional reaction? Like you're emotionally reacting to, like, you seeing it being as wrong, or you're seeing someone, or
It's
it's
like a
the
trigger.
emotional reaction.
It's like a trigger, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Is something triggering the emotional reaction, or is the emotional reaction how you see that something's, I don't know.
The emotional reaction is the first thing that I'm aware of after the stimulus. So the
Right.
stimulus would be like, let's say, um, I'm at a dinner with others and I hear two people talking about a third party not present. And they're talking about this person's choices or life decisions or identity.
Right.
And there's something that they say about this person. Usually it's like a tone of voice as they say it, or like an expression, or I think a feeling of like judgment that I don't like. Um, I'll I've been known to snip into those conversations and kind of like go after them in sort of a aggressive way, and I'll say whatever I need to say to get my point across. Like, the logic isn't, in my personal opinion, not super well worked out, but I'll say what I need to say to impress upon them that what they're saying or what they're doing is wrong or unfair
Right.
to the third party. Um, but within me, what I'm feeling is usually an intense emotion. Um, I don't like what they're saying. I'm angry at them. Um, I would hate to be this other person. Uh, it's just almost like a fire, and that can go in other directions too. It's not always negative or intense or angry or rage filled, though.
Right.
The rage is there for sure. It's one of the responses. Um, Sometimes um,
So yeah, I'm wondering. So okay, this is something Rob's in the chat too. So he's saying that, like, the emotional reaction is triggered by one of your values. So what's happening is, like, one of your values is being um, challenged or being crossed, and then your emotional reaction. And he's saying that, like, based on the emotions, you can figure out what your values are. So, like,
Yeah,
like
I agree with that. I don't think it's something that, like, a value isn't something that's like written out.
right, yeah,
Like I've heard some uh, FI users describe a value as like, so they start listing their values off, like, I value freedom. Like, I'm specifically speaking of like Kendrick, who does a
hmm
lot of interviews with ENFPs and identifies as an ENFP, and he does interviews with other FI users. And he'll start listing off like, oh, I want a list. That's not the way it is for me.
Right.
I don't think I even could give you a list.
Yeah.
Certainly not a written out one. I know when I know. And when it comes out as in a positive, it's like I'll be in the ops group on Facebook, and there's a person talking about their experience or what they're feeling or what they're going through or what they think, and I'll have a very positive response to them, and I'll like just kind of very directly like compliment them, and it'll get like a little weird, like where I'm a little bit over the top, like maybe a little gushy even. Um, but it's very sincere, like it's very earnest. Like, I'm giving that compliment because I feel that in the moment. And sometimes a look back is like, I should have maybe like, moderated that a tone a little bit so it wasn't a little so over the top, because it being so overly sweet, it might not have been received well. It was sincere in the moment. It wasn't trying to like engineer anybody, but it was very much like I could see how it would come off as a little bit extra, like I don't know, too much sugar in the coffee, maybe. Um, but I don't know what it's gonna be, and sometimes it feels contradictory within myself. Like sometimes I'll think I believe something, but then I'll hear or see somebody talking about an issue, and I still respond to them positively, even if it's something that I feel within myself I shouldn't like agree with, like on an intellectual level. Like I'm willing to defer that thinking
Yeah.
because I'm having a positive response to them.
It's a really interesting mechanic because like, okay, like you have this reaction to some, right, and it's subjective, it's based on how your worldview works, right, and you have this reaction to the way someone is behaving or talking or whatever, and
Yeah,
then by presenting that being aware of that reaction and presenting it in some way, you're expressing who you are.
I think so. And I think it's sort of like a thing that has to be flushed out over time,
Right.
and like organized. Um, and if somebody asked me to organize it for them and like organize it out like in like a list of points or something like that, it's where I'm really going to, I think, struggle.
Yeah.
Like, but
You
they
also
if they
sleep
have,
last, right?
that's how Dave and Shannon
Right.
type me. Yeah, that's not how I type myself. But
Okay.
I agree with them now. But like, it took me a while to. I'm still processing that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Sorry,
think
I interrupted. Yeah. Keep.
yeah, no, go ahead with whatever you're gonna say next. I think I wound
Yeah.
down.
Here's one here. What do you do when you are gushed on? I don't even know if you understand what that. I don't know what gushed means.
Just maybe getting like a lot of positive emotion.
Right.
Um, it actually has happened, believe it or not. Like it sounds a little arrogant, but like it really depends. Um, like in like a romantic setting, like if I don't like that person, I might literally like run out of the room. When I was younger, that's literally what I would
Yeah.
do. When I was a kid, once this young woman composed me this whole song that she sang for me, and it really upset me. So I just ran out of the room.
That poor
Other
woman.
times, huh?
She
What's
wrote a
that?
whole song for you and you just bounced.
Yeah, well, I felt cornered. Like she had
Yeah.
like a couple wing girls with her, and maybe
Oh
like a guy
god.
or two too, and they like surrounded me in a hallway, and she just like started singing me a song, and I think I just darted between two people and just ran down the hallway. It was actually like I felt like I was under attack. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's the emotional in the moment response. Like I don't think I could have predicted that happening beforehand, and I don't think I truly understood what was going on with me until long after the fact. And then other individuals that even if I think I don't want to like them, if they have something really good to say about me and they compose me a large like you know uh, text message and send me a large text message talking about how they feel about me, and if I feel like if I'm thinking that it's not going to work out, I still receive that. I'm still like very encouraged and filled with hope, even though I've already have like reasons listed why that would be a bad pairing.
Mm-hmm.
There will be this emotional response that I want this person in my life, and what they're saying about me is something that I'm mirroring for them, and I believe that they truly feel about me. And that can actually create a lot more pain than the avoidance where, I get gushed on and I'm not feeling cool with it and I run away. The pain's kind of over after that day. But if I've logically worked out that something isn't going to be good for me or this other person, and they're expressing a ton of positive emotion for me, I'll almost like become like attached to them emotionally to an unhealthy degree. And when it comes time to let go, for the reasons that I had logically worked out beforehand, there's like a lot of pain involved in that, like excruciating pain. But the logical points that I thought up ahead of time, they were kind of right on.
Right.
But still processing the emotional pain of losing this is like, this person loved and cared for me. I loved and cared for them. But the logical reasons that I thought would lead to it not working have now come to pass. It is time for us to go our separate ways. And it's like I almost can't let go of that. So that's a really long answer to a simple question.
No, that's really good. That's a really good also mechanism that you're describing as well. I would love to unpack that too. So because you're not, would you say maybe it's because you're not responsible to those logical reasons? Yeah, in the end, that's what's going to happen. But right now I'm responsible to the emotions and the emotion, like your own emotions or their emotions. Or
the interesting thing is I do feel somewhat responsible to the logic. Like, I need to sit with it a long time. Like if I have like a feeling that this or that is right or wrong, and then I'm also kind of considering the pros and cons, like in a cold, detached, logical way. I kind of have to like journal about it a lot. I bought this channel change. I bought this free write, distraction-free writing processor that has no internet or anything, and I just take this thing to the side with me, and I write just by myself what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and I'm like kind of going through all the logic, all the memories, all the various connections that various feelings are sort of bringing up in me. And I got an email from the company FreeWrite that I bought this thing from, and they said, according to our cloud service record, you are in the top 1% of people that have written on our product. Like you've written more than like George R.R. Martin's written. It's just like
wow.
What?
How do they know that though? But
it's connected
no
to
internet connection.
It has a Wi-Fi connection that uploads to a cloud service, but it doesn't allow you to browse websites or be distracted.
Wow, that doesn't freak you out that they're tracking you? It doesn't bother you?
It does. It definitely does freak me out. I decided to accept it.
Good for you.
So, but I do avoid writing about certain things like on the processor because I do have this sort of paranoid fear
that they're going to see everything you're writing,
or somebody will hack into it. I'm not worried about them. I don't care about them, but I'm worried that people will hack into my data. Sure, it's already happened.
Weird. Yeah. Okay. So, but like, I recognize that process that you said, but I wouldn't have described it that way. I wouldn't have been so aware of the process. Like, so aware of the emotional side. It's like more like a tangled mess, but for you, it seems like really clear cut. Like this is how the emotions were working.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I can feel like my emotions are a tangled mess too. It's probably not accurate. Like my emotions are probably more just like, I don't know, searing pain or over unbounded joy.
Right. But you're not afraid of, like, even if the logistics tells you, okay, this is not going to work out, you're not afraid of, because obviously you're going to have to break up at some point. You're obviously going to have to go through that pain, but you're not afraid of to get to that pain. You're going to go through it.
No, I think rough for me.
Yeah.
This is me looking back at a long process of healing.
Right.
And not just one instance. Some of my type weaknesses lead to very common patterns that I've had to deal with over and over again in my life. But it generally the common problem is not being unable to deal with the emotions. This is going to be a little bit of a channel change, but I get a little conspiratorial. Like I have a hard time, like if say a friendship is going badly, I can have a lot of ideas about why things are going sour. And I ultimately believe everything will kind of connect eventually and it'll all come together for me. It'll all crystallize. But if that process of crystallization is not taking place and I'm walking down a staircase and missing steps over and over again, I'm going to start wanting to turn the lights on and see, all right, what is the little thing that I'm missing? What is the little truth that I'm missing? What's the fact that in life I just stepped over or didn't see that I now need to backtrack? I need to find what I missed. So I'll go back through messenger logs. I'll try to keep a keen ear about what people are saying about this person's like emotional state. Like I won't ask directly, but I'll like when I'm listening to people and they bring this person up, I'll keenly listen to what it is they're saying about this person so I can try to put together the puzzle of what's going wrong.
Right.
And it gets very Illuminati. Like it gets very unhealthy.
Because you're doing that reckless speculation stuff that you're describing at the beginning, and it's not working out. No. Like you're not getting to some kind of resolution. You're not able to narrow down. It usually means you're missing some kind of SI.
Yeah, and it'll be like it'll get a little weird. Like I remember in college, sitting in the library attic, overlooking all the cars in the parking lot, looking to see who was here and who wasn't, because I was feeling very insecure about friendships and who was talking with who and what was going on behind the scenes that I couldn't see. And this is very like embarrassing to say. Like this is very much me learning to accept the demon side of me, and looking back at that now, that anxiety and that almost, the truth is out there. There's this conspiracy, not necessarily against me personally. Like I don't think people are out there to hurt me personally, but there's stuff going on that's somebody's going to get hurt or bad things are going to happen, and I need to be scanning. I need to have get to the highest vantage point, whether that's looking on MySpace or Zanga, on Facebook, seeing all the comments that people have been commenting to each other back and forth, going up to a literal high vantage point and overlooking the entire parking lot to see what cars are in the parking lot. That kind of ridiculous, cringy behavior is a common issue that I have definitely noticed in me.
I'm really confused right now. Maybe other people get what you're trying to do, but I'm first of all, I really appreciate that you're coming out and expressing this for us. Like this is, it seems really insightful. But I'm wondering, like, what exactly are you trying to do? Where is it coming from?
I believe there's like some secret out there that I need to find out to make everything that is confusing make sense. I need to find something that I'm missing. I occasionally feel like there is something I'm missing out there, some fact, some in reality truth, something that took place that I missed the first time. And I feel like I need to rewind the tape and go over something over and over again.
Another ENFP says he does this too. Interesting.
I would suspect that a lot of ENFPs do this.
Yeah. So you go over and over the info, you feel like you're missing something, but like so for me as a double observer, like obviously some things don't add up. Obviously, like, you're going to miss some info. You're like, it's going to happen and you're not going to be able to solve every puzzle And sometimes the answer is just really banal and mundane, and it's not a big conspiracy. Yeah.
In my case, it's you not wanting the answers that are right in front of me, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, like
looking for more, looking beyond what's there. Yeah.
Well, all right. This next example is going to be a little sad, but like once I was on Facebook and I was just like, going through the timeline and I saw a picture of a young person and it was just them. It was just a picture of them. It was completely innocuous and it's fine, but I felt overwhelmed by a flood of fear that this person was in danger and something bad was happening to them. And I had suspicion about who was the person they needed to be worried about. And I tried to put myself around this person that I thought was dangerous and try to see if I could pick something up on their behavior or something that they're saying that would clue me into that my intuition was correct and give me some sort of basis to take action. But I had no evidence, no proof, nothing in reality, just a strong, horrific feeling.
Wow.
It was just overbearing. And then a year later,
really problematic because like you can usually find proof for even if it's wrong, you could find proofs to support it.
Nah, I don't feel I could. Like I would have a very high standard of like this happened. Like I wanted to join the military long ago, but I decided against it because I would not if I was in a combat situation, I would not believe it was acceptable to potentially take a person's life unless I knew absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person was somehow in a situation where taking up violent action was 100% appropriate. There has to be absolutely no doubt because you could destroy. I mean, in a military situation, you could take someone's life, maim them. War is horrific. So if I felt something about somebody else, the feeling is so horrific that you would never even want to have a whisper of suggestion that there is anything untoward going on with this person unless you absolutely knew. Unfortunately, most things are not provable. Like you can't even get close to the evidence. It's just a guess. It's
right.
And
well,
yeah.
So you first of all, I like that you wouldn't act on just your guess. Like that's very adult of you to not just go around guessing. Oh, this guy's evil. Let's just behave. Yeah. But like I do see a lot of the time that you could construct evidence for any case you wanted in certain situations. Like this is kind of what
Yeah, I think this is sort of a modality thing. I have actually, and this is like a very concrete goal of mine, is to act without having the evidence I was talking about, not in an irresponsible way, not seeking to destroy somebody's life. But especially if I hear like I remember watching cable news and Jared Fogle was on an interview. This is before he was arrested for horrific crimes. I remember him talking about a scenario where somebody was complimenting him for some charity he was doing, and it was a charity he was using to victimize and harm individuals. And I remember him smirking and like his tone, his voice being weird, and just like chills came over me. I'm telling myself that I have this somewhat problematically overpowered intuition. And if I see things like that worry me, I don't have to destroy anybody, but I can at the very least reach out to others for help. Like I'm seeing this, I'm worried. It's a crisis. I can't go to people and ask for help. And maybe they have the truth. Maybe they have the facts. Maybe they have the information that I'm missing. So learning to not be afraid and learning to take action when I feel something, still being responsible, still staying within my lane. It's okay to take action. That if I'm worried, I can be, I guess, that guy. Like I'm very afraid of the guy, like a guy who, shakes everything up. I've lost you. that you're back. Okay. I don't want to be that guy and just destroy a community, destroy someone's life, getting in somebody's face about something. But I'm learning that I need to take strong stands for what's right, and it's not something I need to be afraid of. Like I can make a conclusion for myself to say that this is something that I need to do. And it's not something I need to be afraid of. But I'm kind of going in circles now.
So no, so like, how often would you say those initial guesses are right or wrong?
Well, you can cheat on this so easily. Only the times that I'm really, really right, I'm gonna remember, and the times I'm wrong, I'm just gonna forget about that.
Brush under the rug. Yeah.
You do have to be so careful, because sometimes the information and the conclusions are wrong. Like, I talk with a lot of ENFPs that have these vast conspiracies that are complete BS. And so I view it less as like a call to direct action and more a call to, okay, start seeing how I can be a support in the community, and set up scenarios where the positive outcomes. Like, I don't need to be Judge Dredd. Like, what I need to be is, I work in adult foster care. So the responsible way to do this in my job is, if I sense someone is in an unhealthy situation or isn't taking care of themselves or has a need, start setting up action steps to be there for this person at the various points this person's going to need me. Being direct and telling them, you have to do this, you have to do that, is going to be dismissed by this person. So I have to, kind of I have to put the work in to see how I'm going to be with this person alongside them, helping them in their life goals, stay safe in the community, and grow as a person, sort of in a holistic, step-by-step, over time way. So, like, let's say a scenario where I was kind of getting the sense that somebody was up to no good. And Quentin Tarantino talked about this with Harvey Weinstein. Like, people asked him, what could you have done? And he's like, I should have talked to the guy. Like, not that you're going to make him better or anything, but, if you talk with the person, if you feel something's going on that's very wrong, you can at least get the conversation started where you can start, getting more true information, more perspectives, and more basis for those feelings, those intuitions, and start structuring an action plan of what's the best action that you can take to keep the maximal number of people maximally safe. And I'm starting to realize I need to structure those things out more, stick with it, and be with people for the long haul, and accept whatever horrible reality might be out there, or accept that I might be completely wrong. The evidence may come back and I'm way off, which in many cases that'd be good, because a lot of times I feel negative things out there. So
yeah, I mean, just generally from like the data, it feels like most people are not up to no good. Like, it feels like most people are just, hey, like, things are going okay. Like, it's really rare that you find someone who's actually up to no good or being nefarious or whatever.
Yeah, like psychopathically gaming the system and harming large numbers of individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess they are out there. Like, you hear about them, so it's not unheard of.
I also work with individuals who have behavioral disabilities, so I see it more in my life. Also, I think I'm a double decider, so I radical acceptance kind of comes easy to me.
The other thing is, I'm wondering if you could pick up on it, because like most people who actually do like the bad stuff, they don't see themselves as bad, and they don't see themselves as like being bad, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if you can even pick up on that, because they see themselves as doing something completely fine.
Yeah, sometimes no. Like the individual that I felt was causing harm, I don't know, over a decade ago.
Right.
It wasn't them that was cooling me off. They seemed cool. It was this other data that I was seeing that was like, okay, this person's looking like they're in this and such a state at this such and such a time with such and such a person, and this is all adding up to something that is, sending chills down my spine. Where it's like, this is bad. This is extremely negative. What do I do about it? And in that case, I put myself around the person that I thought was causing harm, and I didn't see anything. Like nothing was ringing a bell.
Were you right? Like, can we skip to the end here? Were you right about this, or?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was, and
Wow.
it caused enormous harm, and I felt very guilty that I wasn't able to do anything about it. So, yeah, so it was a very negative situation.
And like you said, that's the one time you'll remember.
Yeah, times like that I'll remember. There was another time where I had a couple online friends, or friends of friends, where we chat online via like Facebook Messenger. This is right after MySpace was dying and Facebook was new. And there's this one guy who was not such a nice guy, and I felt he was very dangerous for a young woman that he was in contact with. And I got very, I'll just say it, manipulative in trying to get her to try to cut off relations with this guy. And me and this woman weren't friends much longer after that. It was very negative. Like the way I went about it was kind of much more aggressive than I normally would be. But I felt very, worried for her safety. This individual went on to eventually harm other young women and eventually murdered several people and took his own life. And but in my conversations with this guy, he would kind of do the whole, I think he was very similar to my type. I think he was a double decider. I think he was a chaos guy, and he kind of looks like me, like, the beard and stuff. I could be wrong. But he would be really like, he'd say really cruel things to like me, and then he'd like really build me up. I'm like, okay, interesting. Like, if I were a heterosexual woman and he was doing this, and if I was in a vulnerable place, what would my response be? And this woman compared him to Edward Cullen. Like, it's like, I'm just dreaming of it eventually being like this really happy ending for us, and he'll become nicer and everything like that. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying, like that emotion that you're sharing with me. I really get it. I could see myself feeling the same way if I were in your place, but this guy, he's really bad. Yeah. I wasn't the only person that saw that. A lot of people were actually telling me like, hey, you need to look into this guy. So I was resting on the intuition of others on that one too. So, but I took very aggressive action with him, which is weird for me.
Wow. I don't think I was in that kind of situation before. That's strange.
Good. That's great. Yeah.
But so I'm not doing the whole NEFI thing, but there was a guy that I saw was kind of off, and he ended up in like one of the old neighborhoods that I was just renting from. And he ended up being, I don't know. I didn't feel he was so off that I would go and confront him or talk to people about him or whatever. But yeah, he ended up being in some kind of like child sex ring or whatever. Yeah, it was really horrible. Yeah, really bad. But
yeah, like what do you even do about a situation like that? It makes you feel like sick, but like it's interesting because in adult foster care, I work with individuals who, like, a lot of their behaviors are in that vein. And I don't actually hate them. Like, I want good outcomes for everyone.
You're responsible to help them out too, to steer them.
I don't want them back in the community. But it's like I was actually going to this conference on sex trafficking, and they were talking about the victims, which is great. I mean, the victims are not taken care of. But I mean, I think I was the only person to ask them, like, okay, so what are you doing about the Johns in the situation? Like, because like as long as there are mentally unhealthy people seeking out harmful situations, the industry is going to continue. It's like free market kind of a thing. And that like they like the people at the conference like, what? Huh? They weren't even thinking in that way. Like, even if you don't care about the Johns or the causers of harm, as long as that dynamic exists, the systemic problem will go
Yeah,
with
yeah.
it.
You're looking at the system. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
looking at, yeah.
I do genuinely care about people with mental health diagnoses like that. And I actually have been thinking recently I want to become a counselor and work in individual therapy, maybe heavily with that population, because you're not going to get down to the root of the issue until you deal with all the ugliness.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So what's attracting you to that? Like the dark emotions are attractive to you, or
No, actually, dark emotions. Like watching Game of Thrones, there were scenes of like harmful scenes, like painful to my system. Like my nervous system goes into extreme pain.
because you had to
So I
empathize
don't
with
even
them, or
like.
just because it was
I will empathize with the like a victim. Like if someone like if there's a battle sequence and someone is harmed,
right?
um, or if like there's a serial killer. Like I like David Lynch films, but he has a lot of
Uh-huh.
psychopaths in his film, and a lot of the actors like the movie Blue Velvet.
Right.
The villain in Blue Velvet, like there's a scene where his eyes go black, and it's like I don't actually like that at all. I don't have any relish
Yeah.
for those dark emotions. I love really like beautiful emotions.
So then,
I
what's
think
attracting you to digging deep into this? These people who are going through these problems, like you feel you can help, or
a desire for healing. I think when you see healing in anyone, it's
uh,
an enormously powerful thing. Like, you love like going back to Star Wars, Darth Vader is so far beyond almost anyone being able to forgive him. But to have that power of belief to throw away your weapons and say, I believe the goodness in this person will come through in the end. It's like the most powerful force in the universe. And that is what I like about it.
interesting. Do you feel that's naive in a way? Do you or like
Yeah,
or, yeah?
totally. Partially. I mean, I feel like I've seen it work out, so it is naive, but I believe it's there. There are some individuals that are so in pain that I'm very, like I haven't consumed a lot on it, so I know very little about it. But internal family conflicts is a uh, counseling concept that's recently kind of come to my attention. Um, I can't speak too much on it. I've consumed so little, but the idea that people are a sum of parts and that
Yeah.
you don't have to take individual parts of a person as being their final, I guess, identity is something that I'm very fond of. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of also, as a feeler, um, I've seen the violence and rage inside of me, but I would never identify myself solely as that rage. And I can go back to an early memory of me being a child, and yeah, my brother bothering me so much that I dragged him through puddles of mud or whatever as like an 8-year-old or something like that. And I can see look at that rage and that meanness and that
Yeah.
bullying behavior, and like that is a part of who I am. And in that moment, it's very painful to look at.
It's hard to
Um,
accept that about yourself too. Yeah, but it's
it's
like,
hard.
and it's usually something that people deny about themselves. So it's good that you're
Yeah.
even thinking about this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to not embrace that behavior, but understand a person as a whole and in their parts, and try to put the parts in the right place to maximize a person's future and a person's identity.
Mm.
And so, and the reality is, if you want to deal with all people, you're eventually going to have to deal with people at their very darkest. Like Nazis and people causing harm, you can't just say, well, you can if you want, but me, I can't just say, well, I'm willing to tolerate people to this extent, but the mass murderer and the serial killer, I'm gonna just not pay attention to them because they are a part of the whole of humanity.
I mean, I get that it's like it's not comfortable to go into those kind of. It's interesting because like people with the NEFI sort of consume, they usually like consuming people in that way, like the darkness of people. Not even like, but it's like they have a fascination with, okay, yeah, all of these normal people, great. I actually want to go to those. What did you call them? The Nazis and the bad people and the murderers, and like they want to figure out what makes them tick. Like, how are we similar?
Yeah. Now, granted, like in fiction, I like the show Dexter when I was younger and everything like that. So I like that kind of thing. But I was watching this psychologist video by Todd Grande talk about serial killers, and he was talking about, Dexter is the idealized serial killer, the person we can find humanity in. He's like, real serial killers, it's just sadism and it's just pure rage and pain. I like the way you're talking about looking for the darkness in people. I do actually kind of like that. But when you actually get to the sadism, the pain, the true evil, I have no love of that. Nothing about that really draws me in.
But
I want to understand.
No curiosity there?
I don't feel there's much to be curious about because the basic building blocks of all those extreme emotions, I think, are in all people. And I felt the rage. There's no curiosity about rage. I felt rage. There's nothing special about it. It's just something that has to be acknowledged and put in the correct place. If I'm feeling intense rage, I don't have to damn myself for feeling rage. Because when I feel rage, I feel and I'm thinking images in my head of extreme scenarios. And it was a dark thing as a child to deal with. As a child, when I felt rage, thinking sort of, rage has an image. Rage has, a feeling inside, especially in the chest and in the arms and the nervous system. I don't have to hate myself for feeling that, but I can accept it. It's a part of me that's giving me a warning. Something needs to be dealt with. I certainly don't want to act on the rage. I don't want to get in a fight with anyone. I don't want to cause physical harm to somebody that I'm angry at. But I don't need to divorce myself from that emotion. It just has to be reframed.
It's the opposite, I find. If you're divorcing yourself, you'll actually act on it. What you're doing is diffusing it in a way. It's like accepting that there is a bomb to be diffused otherwise it'll
very dangerous bomb.
Yeah, because if you're not trying to diffuse it, it'll just blow up.
Yeah. So I do like
really good, man.
Scenarios. Yeah, I like dark scenarios like that, working through those kind of issues.
We went like a little bit over time, but let's just and we didn't really even talk about any of your functions in a direct way, but this was a good talk. Is there anything you want to promote or any final message maybe you want to say to people of your similar type?
Actually, I'll just give my type real quick. I was shaved as a NEFI, consume, play, blast, sleep. So and masculine, feminine, which was kind of similar to the type that I had for myself, except flip the observer, flip the extroversion and introversion, and it's kind of what you got. I agree with the type, though I'm open to disagreement. It's cool. I do art. My name, Nathaniel Matichuk. You search for me, you'll find my Instagram, and
I put that in the description. The Instagram.
If you enjoy drawings and ink drawings, cool. If not, cool.
You do music too, no?
Learning to. I'm learning.
Okay.
It's been fun, but I've got a long way to go on that front.
Awesome. Well, really great having you on the show. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah. Peace.
Stick around.